I'm not into podcasts.
I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again! What a hit!
Back of the net.
Hello, you're listening to the Not a Pundit podcast, which means, unlike a VAR assistant, you have made the correct call this time. I'm Killian Ginnity, and I'm delighted to be joined as ever by Not a Pundit Conor Glennon.
How you going, boys? Good to see you.
And of course, journalist and author Robbie Redmond.
Hey lads, how are you?
Good. And I'm just going to get straight into it, lads. Like, I'm sure we all saw the big result. Sunderland 3, Sheffield Wednesday 0. Jack Clark, absolute hero. Like, I think just freedom of the city at this stage, just give it to him. And Sunderland are just taking on the championship again, and I think we're in with a good shout. Like, obviously that was the match on the forefront of your minds. Obviously, of
he's
course.
A canny player. He really is. Like that kid's going far.
And his agent is Ian Hart of the Irish parish. So he, who knows? Maybe we'll try and find a granny or let him be adopted or something, just to try and get him on these waters.
Go full Cascarino if we need to.
Yeah. So obviously, this weekend kind of has had one big topic of discussion. And Connor, just before we went in to record, me and you were chatting about it. VAR and the VAR chat room has been released only in the last couple of hours. Talk us through the madness that is.
Well, it's look. It's hard to analyze it completely because we don't know what it's like on a good day. So, we don't know how kind of frantic the discussions are and how, like, we know how quick they have to make a decision, but we don't know the process of their decisions. But if the three of us were in there, it couldn't have been any less organised, and we would have been first day on the job. Like, the resounding quote from me is the very end of it. He goes, I can't do anything, and then evidently some expletive comes out that's I wish we got the fully undone one, but like, it seemed like anarchy in there, and we can go into the reasons why, but I don't know, Rob, if you got a chance to listen to it either, but Christ, like, it seemed like if you're driving the car and you tip off someone in front of you and the whole car is freaking out. It was like that. It was honestly like that.
Yeah, it shows how dysfunctional nearly every job is. I really felt bad for them, even though obviously the level of incompetence, it looked really bad, and particularly as the referee at one point is like, well done boys, good process. Then the match restarts and they're like, oh no, we're after giving the wrong decision is after going through here. Like, he actually says oh, and then has expletive. So yeah, it was an absolute mess. And for me, I'm just going to get straight to it. I just think they should just scrap VAR. I thought that before this. I think even more now. Just get rid of it, Killian. It's like, in Ken Early compared it to prohibition in America. Like, good intentions behind the idea. So prohibition in the 1920s, when they tried to get rid of alcohol, just ended up bringing it back anyway. I think this is the same really with VAR. Like, good intentions behind it, but ultimately the hassle that it causes just isn't worth it. And I think this match really kind of summed that up.
I was saying this to Killian before we hopped on. I was like, look, I love moaning about VAR. It's low hanging fruit every week, but the only reason I ever bought into it in any guise was the bloody offside rule. Like, it's not that hard. Like, I know they've changed it 3 times in, I don't know, the last 10 years, is it? But like, the fact that, like, you look at the lines they're looking at, they did draw them, and it's like, it's so obvious. Like, there's acres there. It's like, if you can't see that, I don't know how you have a job. Like, it's lunacy. And I really, really think, Killian, and I don't know what you think about this, but I think it's as simple as jet lag. And it like, those two, the VAR and the was it the assistant, were out in the UAE with Michael Oliver during the week off the back of an 8-hour flight. Like, we've all travelled far places. We know it's a horrendous thing and your brain's foggy. Like, how is that allowed? For, like, leaving out the discussion of why are they in the UAE, how the hell are they allowed ref a major game within 24 hours of landing? It is absurd.
To quote the Cat in the Hat, Rob, you're not just wrong, you're stupid. VAR is not the problem. Referees are, and the lack of preparation. Because how can World Cups, Champions League and every other league in the world get it even nearly right. Not saying it's a perfect system. Like, rugby have been using this for years. The issue is ever-changing laws and clueless refs. Like, jet lag is the least of their concerns. Like, they genuinely don't seem to know what's going on. Like,
They're having a breeze, and they panic.
And that's even worse. Like, there's nothing more dangerous in a burning building than the guy that panics. And that is what's happening every week, and probably multiple times. Like, there was footage from Eurovision in the 80s of a director screaming to get this done, get that done. Just the behind the scenes of it was fascinating to watch. And it sounds like anarchy, but the difference is there was one guy in control. There was about 4 voices there, and I couldn't tell you who the boss was. Like, where's the accountability?
For those who haven't heard the audio, you listen to it and you'll keep hearing the name Ollie. Ollie is in charge of the replay. His job, he's not a VAR, and he seems to be the only one. He's the only one that seems to be like, lads, we've arsed this. Like, this is a disaster. And then, like, the other thing is, like, I don't know about you, Rob, but like, they say they can't, once the game's restarted, they can't stop it. The ball went out for a throw-in pretty swift after the goal. Can they not break the play there and go, okay, lads, right, we need to address this again? Or is it just game started, sorry, soz about you, hon?
That is it, like the contradictory nature of it, that we're going to stop the game and we're going to look at a video to get it right. But then once the game restarts, we can't drag it back, even though maybe 10 seconds have played, or whatever it might be, or 20 seconds. This is why I just think VAR as a concept just won't work. And I thought this from the start, and I just can't see how it helps. So I'm looking here that when VAR first came in the World Cup in 2018, FIFA analysed it, and it hadn't been used anywhere else before on a big tournament, and the referees' decisions went from 95% accuracy to 99.2% accuracy. But I don't think that extra 4% is worth it. It's not worth we have managers nearly here suggest, not Klopp really suggest, but we have fans or clubs hinting at matches being replayed. Like, replayed. This is the level of paranoia we've got to here with this. Like, no, referees' trust is completely broken. No one thinks they're competent at their job, when ultimately these are probably the best referees around. Maybe not in Europe. Like, maybe there's a couple better, I don't know, but they're about as good as you're going to get. And there's probably going to be, it's almost like referees is like near the priesthood now. Like, who wants to be a referee? Because you're going to get, like, there's going to be a decline in species. Like, there's not many left, because who would want this abuse? Like, so for the sake of that 4% which VAR has brought, none of this is worth it. And we're not going to get these referees who are super competent, who are going to get every decision. I know it looks easy, and it's something like that should be easy, but they seem tied up in knots, and they're worried about, I'd say that referee would be worried about, if he got the signal, what would his bosses say if he brought it back? They're almost worried about, they don't, like any job, they don't want to look like they're incompetent and they're trying to save face almost. Like, remember Mike Dean before, a couple of weeks ago, where he was like saying that, oh yeah, like, I helped out my mate, I didn't alert him to a VAR call because he had a tough day. So it's almost like they're in the trenches with each other, and they're just about kind of self-preservation rather than looking after the rules and enforcing the laws of the game. Not even the rules, the laws of the game. And VAR, just, rather than making things clearer, for every offside call it might get right, this one decision will just make everything else seem illegitimate. And as I said, like, for the sake of 4%, I was happy with it before, and that's someone who watched Thierry Henry handball or all these different injustices, but it just never bothered me, because you just have to accept that this is probably the best we're going to get, and the technology only makes it worse. And then you might compare it to rugby. Rugby's a set piece game. Like, the referee is the most important person in that sport, because it's chaos if the referee isn't there. It'd just be lads punching the head off each other. Whereas football, the referee almost gets in the way of the natural flow of the game, if that makes sense. And I just feel like it just makes it a lot worse. And I go back to that Ken earlier was saying with prohibition. I just fully agree. It's like, it's not working. It's an experiment that just hasn't worked now. It won't happen. It's not going anywhere. But we're stuck with it. But that would be my option. Get rid of it, because I just don't think the referees are maybe on the level we need, as I said, but they also are the best you're going to get. And for the sake of that couple of calls extra you're going to get right, I would happily go back to the last way.
One thing I will say though is, like, I think being devil's advocate here, are we being, like, obviously it was a colossal mess up, like there's no getting away from it. It'll probably be the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of refereeing decisions for VAR, but like we also have to think they aren't machines, they are going to make mistakes. But I do think there's mistakes and then there's this.
There is, yeah, definitely. But I think we also go into it thinking VAR is going to be the one size fits all, that there won't be any mistakes anymore. And this is a mess. Like this is the level of incompetence and a perfect storm at once. Also involving Liverpool, who are kind of the most paranoid fan base, really. One of the most paranoid. Not to offend them, but you know what I mean. They already hate referees. They already don't think they get fair treatment. So it's a perfect storm.
They're not machines, but the machines are the ones that are working. It's the humans that are rushing to decisions. It's humans that can't see a straight line. Apparently, it's the human error, and that's the issue. And I'm starting to wonder: is it an issue with like the referees of England that they're so adamant that they're the best in the world that you're just not taking advice from anywhere else? Like,
you've been saying this for a while. You've been saying that, like, outside the UK, that this doesn't happen as much.
Well, the discussion is not as hotly contested because I don't know if it's just other nations will accept it, kind of going, listen, that's what the camera said, right? Or they're willing to say, right, the referee fucked up. The camera said it was one way, the referee fucked up. That's fine. Because that's the only other option we have of going back, is we have to change the blame from kind of going, well, the machine said this and the referee did the opposite.
Computer says no.
Exactly. To going, oh, well, could the referee have seen it? Could it have been that? And it just, all it does is just turns football into pub talk. And when when the industry is as big as it is, that's just not going to happen anymore. And like, don't forget, it was not that long ago we didn't have yellow and red cards. It was not that long ago that you could back pass to a goalkeeper and they could pick it up. The sport is ever evolving, but we've gotten to a stage that they're trying to tweak it on such a minuscule level that has such massive consequences for teams. And the referee organisation in the UK are either failing to prepare for these and like failing to prepare their referees, or they're so arrogant that they think that they know best. Like,
I'd say it's a mix of the two. I'd say you're not wrong, you know. The thing for me though is these apologies are useless. Like, what? Like, these, you know, PGMOL have made a statement. Well, bloody good for you, lads. Thanks. Like, really appreciate that. That's like failing an exam by 1% and your lecturer saying, oh, if you'd only done that better. Like, cheers, love that. Still failed.
Like, Rob, this is, I think, where one thing they should bring back, which was when a referee got a really big decision badly wrong, that referee could be relegated to the division down and they could be left there for a little while as kind of punishment or take them out of the limelight. There is no accountability on VAR referees or assistant referees, and I think that needs to be the change.
Oh, I still just think, no, just get rid of the VAR. Like, if we're going to look at, like, we've become a slave to the machine here. Like, to make VAR work, look at what we have to do here. We have to relegate referees. We have to get even more referees. There's probably twice as many referees as there used to be now, because we need VAR referees as well, instead of having just two linesmen and a referee. So I just don't think it'll work. It's just creating more layers of bureaucracy and just like, it's just creating, and then we expect more from it because we're like, well, we relegated this referee and we promote this guy, he should be better, and it puts too much scrutiny on them. I just think it's designed to make their jobs better, but ultimately it just makes it a lot more difficult. And I would just completely scrap it and go, like, this is a failed experiment. And regarding, I agree with you about rules changes and the sport evolving, but like, VAR is it's like another tool to kind of track the sport to help make right decisions, but you're never going to get 100% accuracy. And to think that VAR will even bring that, like, as I said, for the sake of that couple of percentage, I would just rather not. It's just not, wasn't there, and we go back to the way it was, and it wasn't as bad as people make out. Like, referee, we remember the Thierry Henry one. We remember.
I was about to say, it stinks of that. It really stinks of that kind of a mess up.
Now we've one of those nearly every other week. Like Mike, as I go back to Mike Dean came out and said, like, oh yeah, I just didn't give that because my mate was having a bad day. Like, it's just, people are just going to let you down. So we can't trust them with this machine. So I would, move on from it. That would be I think it's the only solution at this point, because we're just going to have to keep creating more and more layers. And like, I think I've seen like in the Times, like Henry Winters, like, get ex-professionals to be referees. Like, do they have any choice in this? They don't want to do it. Like, maybe they aren't interested. And to be a referee in the Premier League, you probably have to start when you're very young. And ultimately, as bad as some of these guys are, they're probably the best we have. And as bad as that mistake was, it's like, I think we're stuck with them basically, and it's just have to accept that, like the way we accept.
You said what, 2018 it came in. Like the thing is, right, no matter if you brought Kalina in, he still only had 5 years to get used to the system.
That's your point.
So it's now getting to a point where, do you want a better referee on VAR or in the pitch? Because to be honest with you, I'd rather a shittier ref on the pitch who sends it up to a lad who knows what he's doing upstairs. It's like, and that sounds insane that I don't want the best ref on the pitch.
This is where my suggestion, at the risk of the wrath of Rob, do we scrap the on-pitch ref and
absolutely
just give
not.
it to a guy
Jesus. Don't make me walk out.
No,
put it this way, Killian,
give it to
right?
the guy that has all of the angles, where there's a much lower chance for humour and error, with a team in front of him. Like, if TV directors can do it for the likes of a Eurovision or the likes of a World Cup, where there'll be 100 cameras around the place and they're getting the best coverage, would that not be the best way of catching every little infraction?
So we're going from VAR arsing it up to potentially being our new overlord, where
100%.
we can't. No, Jesus!
Like,
Christ!
I play five-side football, and we even need a referee in that, Killian, and like, that's the level. The referee is important. They're not just there they're also to get ensure a flow of a game, and like, they do have an impact on it. And usually, you can I used to hate when Mike Dean was refereeing United matches and watch them, and I was since kind of proven right that he was an awful gobshite, like, and you could see that the way he was talking about refereeing when he was on that podcast. For me, so that's a non-goal for me. That we still need them. I think we need a good referee on the pitch as well. And you're right, Connor, about this, the first generation of like VAR reps. So they need time to get used to it, I suppose, or still familiarise with them. And maybe the next generation of them will be better. But just for me, the other issue with VAR, I've got to say, is that like, it favours big teams. Like, if you think about it, like, if you're a smaller team playing against a big team, there's less chance now of getting a dodgy offside or I know, that's what makes to me. It just favours the big teams. That's where what bothers me with it, because it just makes it a lot easier for the big teams to be successful on the day, because a marginal call might not go their way, particularly if they're away from home. Like, if that match was at Anfield the other day with Liverpool fans shouting and screaming, maybe the referee would have maybe the linesman wouldn't have flagged for it. But because it was in Tottenham, this affects it. So, and the other one is that, like, the lad I know, Nathan, was talking to me about this, and he made a very good point. He was saying it's also kind of affected the way teams play, and because you see Liverpool now, they play a particularly high line, and you don't usually see the type of strikers that you used to see, like Filippo Inzaghi, who would stay on the half or stay on the offside and try play on the last man and try just play on that line, and they don't really exist anymore. And there's other reasons for that, like people like Pep, and they're kind of like, it's all about midfield now, or it's all about building from the back, but it is affecting that element of it too, because you can't get away with one anymore. Like, Alex Ferguson say that, like, Filippo Inzaghi was born offside, sorry. Like, that's impossible now. Like, you will be caught, or you might not. But then if you aren't caught by VAR, it's an absolute disaster. You know that way. So I just think it just reduces my enjoyment of it, really.
What's a weird one is we're all saying, the refs need to be relegated or pushed on. What also comes into this, and it was a piece I was reading on The Athletic, is you've got to remember there's employment law involved in this. You can't just bin someone for one mistake, like, you know what I mean? Like, so, like, you dismiss a guy, you either pay him off for the long term or push him upstairs to a higher position, which makes no sense. So it's kind of like they created this beast, they can't tame the beast. It's what the hell do you do next? And like, the only thing I can think is off the back of what we were saying, where they're first generation refs, get the English refs to be VAR assistants in summer leagues. So they can get the training through the summer, whether it's Ireland, I don't know, like Ireland's just the obvious one because we're from here, but give them more game time. Like, because even you can sit them in front of a telly and get them to do games that are previously happened, but they know what's happened in those games. They need to be just, whether it's the worst football you've ever seen, it's still a live game that you don't know what's going to happen in, and surely that upskills you. And then there has to be kind of KPI pieces within their job that if they've X amount of mistakes per 90 minutes and all that they get reviewed. But I'm on Rob's side of the fence, but I just think bin the whole thing, and just maybe I'm just an old bastard when it comes to this stuff.
Look, Connor, as the only one of us that has actually done any refereeing, like, when you're going through the course now, I know lower level in Ireland,
grassroots,
it's not going to be Howard Webb pulling you to the side and teaching you how it's done.
Well, it seems like it do just as well at the moment, but
but this is the thing. Like, if from your experience, how backwards it was at that level, or how advanced it was, I'm not going to cast any assertions on the Refereeing Association of Ireland, but how long would it take them to actually adequately train these guys, and would they be better off not necessarily binning a couple of generations of refs, but trying to advance a couple of really young ones that have never had the experience of using the old way? Like,
get
a load of like digital native generation kids into refereeing and go, listen lads, this is how cool it can be, and you're the one that's going to do this. Because I see it even from my nieces and nephews and cousins and all that. They see screens, and even down to frame rates, they see that completely different to us.
Yeah, I think on the first part of that question, in terms of the refereeing, like, don't get me wrong, it's an incredibly difficult job. It was only a couple of day course to get your kind of grassroots license, and I think what was worrying for me within that is, you know, you could have absolutely no idea about football, but just know how to do a test right. Like, it was a written test at the end of the day. Yeah, there was like pitch work and stuff, but it's very much just an exam. So if you can boss an exam, you're fine. But I think, you know, outside of that, coming back to the second point, the digitally native ones, I think that is a good idea for sure. But I think the problem is with digitally native ones is that would suggest that they're quite young, and then what your trouble is with that is you're going up against seasoned players who are, you know, 35, 36, 37. It's getting older and older, and it's like, I don't think they'll command the respect. So unless we focus on them being VAR only and they'll only ever be in that box, that could work. But if in order, you could argue at the same time though, you need to have on pitch experience to get the base knowledge to then get into the box. So it's definitely worth the discussion if VAR is to be stuck around, because look, there has to be some way to elevate and retrain the staff members. But like, I think in the short term summer leagues, long term digitally native savvy people.
Like, I think if you had digital natives as only VARs and not give them the on-field one, and then teach the on-field referees, like, let them get the on-pitch experience, let them get used to getting shouted at and all that, and let them be because that's what they ultimately are. They're the ones that make the decision. That's where, it's like when you have a business manager and your accountant. Your accountant's going to tell you to do things by the letter of the law, and you do this because it's profitable. And let that be your digital natives in the VAR room, because they're going to tell you exactly to the rule book, this is offside or offside, onside, or it's this or it's that, it's the other, and then let the referee make it in the flow of the game.
We've said this before though as well. What worries me is the pace at which they're expected to make these decisions isn't defined by the refs. It's defined by the TV, because if they have a certain time block that they can't go over, and if they go over, there's, you know, fines and issues with that. So it's kind of like there just needs to be and we're not expecting them to take half an hour here, but why can't they take 2 minutes? You know, if it's that big of an issue, why not?
Well, Rob, this kind of brings me to the next part of this discussion that I wanted to bring on to. Does this push football more into the streaming realm and get us away from traditional TV, where there is no such thing as time blocks, because you just run it until it's done?
Potentially, yeah. Like, I don't understand why you would get everyone together in a stadium and get the players and they work towards it all day, and then you're trying to wrap it up as quick as possible. Like, I do see people complaining, it's 10 minutes added on. I'm like, yeah, and like, so Like, we're all here now. We might as well watch it. So, yeah, if that is a consideration that you're worried about TV, that's ridiculous. Like, it should just be finding the right result. But it is become, I suppose, it's become almost like content now, isn't it? And even this VAR debate is, I don't see, like, I know the pundits are kind of annoyed about it, but it gives them something to talk about all week.
It sells,
well. So
it sells papers, and I know it makes you sound like an old school bastard. Like, I know it's more people are looking for impressions now, but whatever medium you're in, traditional or non-traditional, this is gold. You know? Yeah,
so it's content really. So maybe it is pushing towards streaming, but I can't see Sky, like the Premier League is Sky's USP. Like, they're never going to give it up. No matter what the cost is, they'll pay it. If it means wherever it means losing whatever rights to any other league, they'll do it. They're just basically Premier League TV, aren't they? So I can't see them ever losing it. But yeah, I don't know, possibly, but I just don't think this is tenable. This can't keep going, and I don't see the referees getting any better. But I do. My solution stands: just scrap it and move on. And it's no one's fault, because I don't think football lends itself to this level of video scrutiny. It's not rugby, it's not American football. They're very set piece orientated sports. Football is a free flowing sport, and it does kill the spectacle. Like, even I just find myself going on my phone when there's a VAR call. I'm like, I'm not be hearing about it all week anyway, so I just go on my phone, scroll away. But it takes me out of the match, and I just don't like that. Anything that takes you out of the game or something you're sitting down to enjoy just isn't worth it, really.
Just as a quick aside, one thing I will go against with VAR is it has ruined celebrations. Like, there's no more backflips anymore. Yeah. And the quickest
there's no Lualua going 13 flips in the air like you just don't care.
Well, this is the thing. What was your favourite football celebration growing up? Like, what was the one that you tried to replicate on the on the pitch?
I was okay, everyone wanted to do a backflip, but I'm from Ireland, so that isn't possible. But I was always a big fan of a knee slide is good, but if you make a mess of it, you end up on your face, and it's proper embarrassing. I was a big fan of simple celebrations, like not your Alan Shearer ones, but like Ruud van Nistelrooy type ones, where it's pretty simple. And I think the only one I'd add in as well, you can't be from Ireland and not enjoy the Robbie Keane special.
Oh no, fist pump, that would do me, but I would never have the ability or the charisma to do a Cantona. That was
or a Bellingham now.
Yeah, you kind of have to be really good to do that. Definitely.
What about you, Killian? What are you saying?
So I loved the big showpiece ones. Kenway Jones double backflip was great. The nanny little twisty backflip one was always a great one to see. Robert Earnshaw used to do a front flip.
He did actually,
representing Wales. Yeah. Like, there's been some really, really good ones. There was even Gomis for Swansea a couple of years ago with the on his hands and knees clawing at the canvas.
Oh, that was good.
Great. But my favourite, just for it being an absolute classic, and he did it for so long, it's so simple, and it was one you could do anywhere. Tim Cahill punching the corner flag.
Oh, that was class. Yeah, actually,
what a classic.
Yeah. I think honourable mention for I can't remember who it was at Fulham, and they walked like a dog, went over to the corner post and put their leg up like they were going for a whiz. That was very good. But Tim Cahill's boxing the corner flag that's also an era of football. That just is like a warm hug to me, you know.
Yeah. One I'd have to add in is John O'Shea when he scored against Arsenal at Highbury, and he just had that shocked look on his face, and everyone else was shocked because he scored like a left-footed chip into the top corner, and he's run around, and everyone's chasing after him, and he's shocked. And yeah, that was a good one, because that's probably how I'd celebrate if I was ever to score a decent goal like that.
Like, one of my favourite ones in the Tim Cahill era was Sunderland was flying high. It was great. It was under Steve Bruce. It was the year that we bet Chelsea 3-0 with a Neda Manoa fucking whistling through the Chelsea defence as if they weren't there. But so we had in that kind of era during Zenden's one. So I was either with I think it was with Asamoah Jam or Drew BLCC, I can't remember who, but one of the lads scored, and he had a dance, and he was doing the dance, and 34-year-old Bolo Zenden came up and did it with him. Like, there is nothing better than a dad dance when you're celebrating football. But one of the things that I do hate about modern celebrations as well, not just because of VAR, is you see it with Jesse Lingard making into a branding opportunity.
Or Bale, I think, was the first one in on that, with the whole heart in the hands thing. Like the whatchamacallit, the kind of putting the two palms together. He I know he trademarked that. Like, I mean, I appreciate branding opportunities from a professional side of things, but yeah, I think keep them clear of football for sure.
But speaking of branding opportunities, Chelsea finally have a brand on their shirt after going the last couple of months with no sponsor. Rob, what do you think? Is this going to be another way for them to try and get around FFP?
It does seem like that.
How much do they get in the end? How much is it a year?
Sure. Let me just double check that.
It's gotta be north of 35 minimum, or they wouldn't have done it.
40 million plus deal over. It is over
this year.
Oh, so they're basically just, that is FFP, then it has to be. They need money in the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like a decent enough deal. Yeah, there is what the Barca say a few months ago when they were trying to move funds around, like exercising economic levers. So I think for Chelsea are definitely the same, just moving the cash around, try to keep things. And they won a match.
Gymnastics.
Yeah, and they won a game. So like, and Modric scored. So it's been what a week
for
big Chelsea.
Week.
Their best week since they won the Champions League.
But I don't think they, in terms of good weeks, I don't think they can actually beat Aston Villa. Like 6-1 at Brighton, Connor.
Did you watch it, boys? Like I only caught the highlights.
I watched the highlights.
Of it. Yeah, but like Jesus, like they absolutely bossed that game, and I don't think anyone expected that. Like, look, Villa are playing amazing football. They're playing repossession-based football. Like, I was only saying to Killian before this, Rob, what I've found kind of interesting over the last 2-3 games of the season, or 2-3 game weeks of the season, most teams are clocking up about 20 shots a game. So it seems like the kind of volume of attack is going up, and Villa are right there, but I think possession is one thing. You know, many people say you can pass to your centre backs and you can lose a game, but 19 shots, 9 on target with a 61% possession and 6 goals on the score sheet. I mean, the only thing you can put against them is conceding one. But I mean, Watkins was on fire. It was nice to see Ansu Fati get a goal in there. What it means for Villa, I don't know, but it was bloody exciting to watch.
Another result that I couldn't believe and I was delighted to see was that Korean guy scoring against Guardiola, Rob.
Yeah, you just knew when he said that something was going to happen there. He looked ridiculous, didn't it? It was weirdly disrespectful. Like, I don't know why he referred to him as that.
It was verging on racist when I heard it. I was like, oh, this could get him in some hot water.
Yeah, you're like, that's a weird, like, such an intelligent guy to say something like that. So it was nice to see. And yet, in Haaland blanking again, and I only seen highlights, but Man City look a bit kind of stiff without. They'll still win the Premier League, but they don't look what they were last season, particularly without De Bruyne. And yeah, it was just kind of poetic that the Korean guy scored the winning goal, basically.
The Pedro Neto, though, he is one serious baller. Holy God. He is the kind of guy that if he turned up at City next year, he'd be like, yep, that would work. Yep, that's just add another one to their armoury. But Alvarez as well, 5 goals in 7 games. He's looks like he's found a stride.
One of Robbie's FPL picks.
Indeed. The one game for me, boys, that I was interested in was the Luton game. Everton Luton, arguably a 6-pointer in 7 games in, but huge game. I'll be honest, I was on my phone ready to go, waiting to share an asset, saying will they get less points than Derby, and they had to just fuck up my day. But I mean, dirty football, you could say, in terms of set pieces won them that game, but if that's going to keep them up, I don't think Luton will be annoyed about that.
That's a proper relegation team's game, because, like, again, I didn't get to see all of it. Just too much football on. But, like, they were way down on possession. They were way down on shots. They were way down on touches, passes. But they got the result. And this is where
they had 2 shots on target. The 2 shots on target and 2 goals. Like, that's as filthy as you can get. But if Big Sam football.
Well, I don't think they were even playing Big Sam football in the sense that, like, it wasn't eye gouging to watch. Like, it was never going to be a thrill fest against Sean DiCinio. It's never going to be an absolute goal fest or anything. But, like, it kind of proves if you can grind out a result like this against the teams like Everton, because they are the teams that you need to beat, those that are going to be around you. I'm not tipping them to stay up, but I think it could be later in the season before that's decided.
It'd be a miracle if they do, and look, if they do, fair play to them, but if they do stay up, they're dead on to go down next year. Like, absolute see us on.
They remind me of 2 teams of a decade ago, like when I was starting to watch football properly. Similar kind of ilk. Hull under Phil Brown and Ian Holloway's Blackpool, where it's that kind of like, you don't expect to be here. Oh my god, you stayed up. Holy shit, what are you going to do next? And if you go down next year, well, who cares?
When Wigan came up as well, that they had a good 5-6 year stint of staying up, if I'm not wrong.
They had a great stint, and they had some great players. They had like Amir Zaki, Nzogbia, Antonio Valencia, Wilson Palacios, like Mario Melchiot.
Or as Joe Kinnear likes to call him, insomnia, but that's for another day's chat.
Oh, Mr. Kinnear, who tried to sign his own player when he was director of football in Newcastle.
This is the kind of thing though where, like, I don't think, like, people forget how much of a shitfest Newcastle was for so many years. Like, we'd I think by the time Shearer came in, when we were going down, he was either the 4th or there'd been 4 managers before him that season. Like, we were a laughing stock. So to see us in Champions League nights again is just wild.
Connor, don't take heart. I'll never forget those days. They were great days. They were fantastic. Rob, one game that I did kind of want to get your reaction on is Man United falling to the mighty Crystal Palace.
A week after beating them.
Yeah. You know that's bad when Man United, like, losing isn't actually that much of a surprise when, like, they were like 5th on match of the day. So I didn't see the match. It wasn't on TV. So I was watching the following Soccer Saturday and I was like, oh, I'll watch the highlights to see how bad it was. And I was like an hour into the show before I actually saw the match. I was like, oh man, like 10 years ago Man United lost to Palace. I know there were other big results, but Man United lose at home to Palace 10 years ago, and that's at least in the top 2 or 3 matches. Now it's just like you're coming on ahead of, I don't know,
Luton were on before you. Like, come on.
Yeah, this is it. This is the level you're at. Like, Luton beating Everton was nearly more noteworthy, or just like of more interest. Oh yeah, Man United lost against their 4th loss in 6 games this season, and it's no surprise.
It's your worst start in 30 years. I think 35 maybe.
Yeah, I feel like every season United have their worst start in 35 years. It's just, I feel like we've had this a few times. Like, but this feels different actually than the Moyes one or the Solskjaer one. It's less entertaining anyway. Even if you weren't a Man United fan, you're watching it. It's just something kind of predictable about it. And I feel like they're carrying on a lot of form from last season. So like they've only scored 6 goals in 7 games this season. 3 of those against Forest in kind of a bit of a mad game. They only scored like 54 or 57 goals in the entirety of last season. Like, you don't score anywhere near enough goals. And before, he was getting a hard time, but because he wasn't very good with his feet. But De Gea was kind of keeping score down a lot. I know he made a lot of blunders, but he was generally keeping a lot of clean sheets. Now they can't keep clean sheets, and they're not scoring any goals. And you can see the pressure now going in Ten Hag, and he was questioning Rashford's decision making, which I don't know if I liked hearing it, but I'm glad he did do it, because his decision making is terrible. He plays like a 15-year-old, just drops his head and runs into the box and shoots. Doesn't look for anyone to pass to. It's just a bit of a mess. And Casemiro is really starting to look like that old lad in five-a-side who just can't really get around the pitch anymore. He's a good player.
He's your top scorer this season.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the just sterile possession and Palace like just fully deserved the win from the highlights I saw, and it's no surprise it's trending in what was last season similar type of form, other than a period maybe after Christmas where they were quite good, but the rest of the season it was a lot of these type of results, and there seems to be too many good teams now. So you've like obviously Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham. Then you have Villa, Brighton, and I even think Chelsea are better than United at the moment, which is a bit mad. Like they haven't been doing well at all, Chelsea, but I think they've put together better performances than United. And I think the results will come. Whereas with United, just
if Chelsea can, if not to sound like Poch, but if Chelsea can score goals, they're working. They're not playing bad football.
Yeah, here's one, a real nerdy one, Killian, that like Chelsea have won every match on XG, so they've created enough chances to win every game, just haven't taken them. Whereas United, I think their XG for so far this season is like 11, so they probably should have scored 5 more goals than they have, but it's still not a lot. Like 11 goals in 7 games, like it's a bit scratchy, isn't it? And that's with the chances they created, and ideally they should score. So no surprise at all. And I think it's going to be another one of those seasons. You always have to do half decent one season, and then the following season they drop. The arse drops out, basically.
It's a lack of being clinical though, because not to be the stats guy, but like 77% possession, 19 shots, and only 4 of them on target. Like, come on. And Killian, you've been beating the drum for a while that the Premier League doesn't have enough kind of, or not even the Premier League, just European football, like true number 9s that are poachers. Like outside Lewandowski, Harry Kane, Haaland, that's about it. Of pure 9s, like Mbappe's not in there.
Like you don't have any Drogbas anymore. You don't have any Eto'os anymore. Dwight York's Dwight York was a good striker. He wasn't a world beater by any stretch of the imagination. But
got goals though.
But you think in like this era, a player like that should be able to get a ton of goals. But Messi ruined the fun because everybody then wanted from the academies false 9s and advanced forwards and pressing forwards and all these kind of bits. No, just get a lad that's going to be. Just get Evan Ferguson. Just make him 10 times in a row. He'll be in the box. He can do a bit of everything, and he'll just get your fucking goals.
But even he is now. He's dropping deep and kicking off the ball and half spaces and all this type of stuff. I think it goes back to Guardiola and just wanting a whole team of midfielders, and there's no individualists. Like the individualists are kind of being driven out of game nearly. Like that's why maybe someone like Maddison stands out, because there's not many Mavericks like kind of Maddison left. A lot of the pure strikers that we think of, like Inzaghi or all these guys you remember from years ago, they're not coming through because the game has become so automized, or like it's all about fitting into certain types of roles, and there's no space for the goal hangers anymore.
I hate to say it to you, Rob, but there was a pundit I heard during the week that said that the reason on your point, the reason that all these kind of lack of strikers is happening, that we don't play 4-4-2 anymore and we're not bringing through 2 strikers, and this is going to hurt you in the soul, but it was Big Meeks. And Big Meeks and you have the same opinion for once.
Well, even a broken clock is right twice a day, and that includes me as well. He's right, Big Meeks is right. Like, it's definitely, it's notable losing Man United having to spend 75 million on a very raw player like Højlund. He could be good. He's looked good, okay so far. But 75 million used to get you Ronaldo. Now it'll get you a lad who might be able to get you 20 goals in a season, maybe. So,
well, when you look at Messi, what was it in his peak? I think he got 90 goals one year, or 80 odd in a 12-month period. Like, I know we'll never see the likes of that again, but we're not even seeing a third of that, you know.
Just before we fully go off United, and we kind of covered this point last week, but I did just Ten Hag's man management. He's making comments about Rashford this week. He's successfully pissed off Harry Maguire, Ronaldo, Sancho. Like, it's a bit Mourinho-esque, Rob.
He's pissing off all the right people, I would say. As I said, I do think he has that kind of. He's a bit stiff, isn't he? He doesn't have. He's a bit of a charisma vacuum. And I don't know necessarily if it's the right pick for United, but I wouldn't be. Mourinho was always like, it was always the nuclear option. Like, it wasn't just criticised him, it was destroyed him. Like the way he spoke about Luke Shaw, like he was like, it's his brain, or it's his body, and it's my brain. And you can't give him credit for that performance because basically I was the one controlling him. That's the way he was speaking about people. Ten Hag is a bit more maybe in the Van Gaal level of things, or even Pep. It's a bit passive aggressive and a bit, like he's muttering it, and it's. But also he's kind of right. Like Rashford's not making good decisions. He's wasting chances. I think he still has enough credit in there from last season winning the cup and qualifying for Champions League. But I would have doubts if he is the. I would think, as I said, I think he needs to. There's going to need to be more of a charismatic or big time manager maybe to do that job rather than him, given how much of a mess Man United is. Whereas at Ajax we had someone signing players from. It was probably a bit easier to fall out with the players and be a bit stiffer with them because he knew he had people in the club who could move them on or who could get him replacements. Whereas with United, like if you fall out with Rashford, what are you going to do?
Well, to be a United manager though, I think you need to be that all-encompassing guy. And I know Fergie set the kind of parameters for that, and it doesn't have to be always Fergie, everything for United, but like whether it's Man United, Real Madrid, Liverpool, any major club in the world, you need to run that place like a mafia, Don. Everything goes through you, you set the rules, anyone goes out of line, they're terrified of you, and when things go wrong, you take it on the chin. And that I have to ask, do you think 12 months from now he's still there?
No. Maybe 12 months, but maybe the end of next season.
Yeah.
It's going to go back to the same cycle, isn't it? He's going to fall out with the players. He's not going to reach the Champions League, which guarantees United so much money with certain deals like with Adidas or their shirt sponsors. So, and then Champions League money they miss out on, and then they're back again to square one. So, as long as the Glazers are there, no, it won't be. Maybe the next owners, if there is any to come in, it might be different. It might be a director of football, but I think it does seem like we're starting to enter the mid-period of it ahead of the inevitable, which is, walking away because it just seems too much of a mess for him.
Lads, before we go on to Rob's FPL picks of the week, I want to completely depress you.
Oh, God.
Devon Kimborough made history with his debut in the USL for Sacramento Republic versus Las Vegas Lights. He's 13-year-old. He was born in 2010.
My brain won't even let me go there. That's happening. Like
football boots older than him.
Like 13. Like
literally.
He also, from the clips I saw, he looked good and he didn't look scared. You know what I mean? Like he seemed to be. The captain came over to him, gave him kind of that whack around the neck, and was like, "Right, kid, let's see what you're made of," and passed the test for me.
Like, and some interesting bits about him. So, like, he joined the club's academy at 11 years old in 2021. But, like, 27 goals in 31 games. And then he went up the next kind of age group, 34 goals in 50 for the under 14s and under 15s. So, like, he's over level for his age. But one good thing for him is that Sacramento Republic's president, Todd Dunavant, was on the pitch for Freddie Adu's debut.
Oh my God.
And he was so he's now saying, don't worry lads, he's going to mind him because Freddie was put under immense pressure and he shouldn't have been. Freddie, who actually did play for Las Vegas Lights, the opponents that he came on against. So let's hope that's not an omen for his career, Rob. Yeah,
what was Ferguson when he made his debut against Chelsea? 14?
Yeah, somewhere around that.
Yeah,
I think he was defo 15 max, and he worked out fine. Evan Ferguson against Chelsea.
Yeah, sure. Ethan Ampadu 15 for Exeter playing first team football. So like,
I tell you, the biggest thing, lads, that made me, whatever about the kid being 13, did you see the club photographer? Have you seen that video? So he's on the subs, he's kind of boards come up, he's just waiting to come on the pitch. The game's still in play, and the club photographer is like in front of him on the pitch, getting every single angle, close up on his face. Like she's moving, like she's crab walking the sideline. The game's on. Like if the ball comes over, she may as well join in. And I was just like, it's the most American thing you've ever bloody seen. It's just like, lads, I know he could be the new Messi, and you want to be the first one to get the image and have T-shirts made for forevermore. But fuck me, just let him come on and play the game. Like,
as a cameraman, I'm going to defend her. Get the shot. It's all about the shot. Get the shot. And now, Rob, over to you for your FPL shots. Three to buy, three to sell.
I've had really since I started doing this, I've had some really stinking weeks, but I really have now. But I would take, if you're still mad enough to follow, I have to say, I would look at Son. So that's kind of a no-brainer. But also Tottenham have Luton away, so Sonny is in great form and he's playing centre forward. He's down as a midfielder on the game. I would definitely go for Son. Another outside shout I would go for would be Calvert-Lewin for Everton. So like, he was good on fantasy a couple of years ago, and then obviously he's had like loads of injuries, but he's been scoring and looks to be fit again now. He's always going to be an injury doubt, and he's always going to be potential for him to miss a lot of games. But if you're looking for a punt, I would say, I'd go with Calvert-Lewin. If you're playing a wild card or something like that, he could be a good shout. And then the last one would be a boring enough one, but it's Anderson of Palace, because it's boring in the sense that it's kind of like obvious you're chasing the points because he scored against United. I have him in my draft team and he got 15 points last week, but he also has really good fixtures. So they play, let me see here, Palace.
I thought you were talking about Elliot Anderson from Newcastle.
No,
you got me all excited,
sorry.
Rob.
Joachim Anderson. So, like, Palace are at home to Forest, so good chance for clean sheet there. Then they are away to Newcastle, which is an easy game, but then after that, it's mostly green fixtures. So it's like on the fixture difficulty rate on the fantasy side, they're all kind of relatively easy fixtures. And the thing about Roy Hodgson in fantasy, his teams are always great to kind of go for, like for the defenders, because they're always cheap, because he's always managing a lower team, and they get so many clean sheets. So Anderson would be definitely one I'd be looking at. He's 4.7 now. He was 4.5. His prices keeps going up, so I'd jump on him. And to sell, I would sell every Man United player you have. I don't care that he's Brentford on. Honestly, like, I've lost so many points by having Rashford, by having Bruno, and going, oh well, this week, I have Palace at home, I'll stick with Bruno. Like, don't fall for that. Like, so I would sell Rashford, Bruno, and Onana, because that's what I'm going to do, because I have the three of them in my team, and Onana is not keeping clean sheets. Fernandes is being a bit, he's not doing great, is he? Like, and then Rashford is form is poor. And then you look at United's wider stats, as I've been saying, like, they've only got 7 goals this season, so you're onto a hiding to nothing if you're putting 20 million of your funds into 2 Man United forwards for a team that don't score a lot of goals. So Rashford, Fernandes, and Onana would be out of my team. But if you're looking for a non-Man United player just to balance it out, I think it might be time maybe to move on Estupinan off Brighton. He got -2 last week with an own goal. He was taken off, and De Zerbi does rotate a lot. Like, so they'll have a European game as well, so he could just fall out of favour, and it feels like the points might be gone there, so I'd maybe move him on, even though he was doing really well at the start of the season.
I think it's a solid bunch of buys and sells there. I mean, like you said, there's a few of them haven't gone your way. I think a few of them have been outside your control. But Alvarez is definitely one that's got me up the leaderboard and with my fantasy team. So stick in with them, lads and ladettes. Yeah. There is hope.
Watkins broke my heart now since I said sell him.
I'm not going to lie. When I saw that, I was like, oh my God.
That's how I lost my mini leagues. Like, because I didn't get on the Watkins bandwagon. So yeah, I've had nothing but there's always one player that you just have bad luck with. So it's not too bad if you swap him for Alvarez because he's been scoring lots of goals, but Watkins did get 23 points at the weekend, so that was tough to see.
And gentlemen, we're coming to the end of our episode for this week. Great to have you again, and as always, and great to have you, the listener. We'll be back to you next week. I've been Not a Pundit Killeen Ginnity, and my thanks to Not a Pundit Conor Glennon.
Thanks a million, boys. It feels good to finally not shout into the clouds about VAR and actually kind of get some bounce back on it.
And my thanks to journalist and author Robbie Redmond.
Thanks, lads.
Bye-bye.
I'm not into podcasts.
I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again.
What a hit! Back of the net.